Right, we've got 7 questions for the Hexmark Destroyer as voted by you guys from the poll. 1,400 votes, and it was quite close. In fact, 33% of you vote for the Hexmark and 31% for Orokin the Diviner. I, of course, was setting up the video and I was going with Orokin the Diviner. That's the 3rd time now that's happened in about a month. Anyway, so we've got questions such as, what's the best enhancement options for a Hexmark Destroyer? Should you plan around the multi-threat eliminator ability? And how many Hexmarks is enough for your list? These questions will be asked and answered along with others. Now, another shout out, the Christmas content on this channel, we're going to be doing a Christmas Necron, or Necron's Christmas wish list. Just my wish list and a daily advent of units and what I would like to see changed with those said units. So a little hint for what we're going to be doing. Shout out, this one goes to Donut O, and it's in relation to the previous video shout out, which I messed up completely, so I'm going to apologise now on camera. And it was a shout out to Drunk Aim Bot, but I think I said it as Drunk I Aim. I don't even know what I said. Drunk Aim I'm a Bot. This was a question from Drunk A I'm Bot. I feel drunk just reading that. Drunk A I'm Bot. I completely butchered the name, and yeah, so I thought this is worth a shout out as well. So shout out to both of you, Donut O and Drunk Aim Bot. Right, all the intros are out of the way. Let's get on with the 7 questions for the Hexmark Destroyer. Now, it's a 70-point infantry character from the Destroyer cult, with the keyword rather. Let's get on to the first question, shall we? So, is one Hexmark Destroyer enough? This was a question from Tipo6805. Is one enough? Good question. I mean, it all depends on your playstyle. My playstyle, for me, I'm about the scoring, I'm about the secondaries, so I'm generally taking 2, potentially 3, because I really like Hexmark Destroyers. Now, I'm a fixed objectives player, fixed secondaries player, so I like to go with established locus and behind enemy lines if the game allows for it. Of course, if you're going up against certain factions, it might not allow for it, like Tau, or just hordes, like orcs and things. You're not going to get it, so you're going to have to switch it up. But that's generally what I do in competitive play, so I want as many of these as possible to make sure I can score my secondaries. Now, there are, of course, other units that you can use to do these secondaries, which we'll talk about a little bit more later in this video. But I like to use the Hypercrypt Legion and especially Cosmic Precision just to get them in and then get their action going. Established Locust. Now, if you're using them in other ways, like maybe you're sticking an enhancement on them or you're playing them a bit more defensively, maybe they're just there stuck in a unit of warriors, and as soon as the warriors are targeted, they get to shoot with the multi-threat eliminator. If you're using them in that sense, or the free overwatch as well, you probably only need one. One's enough. I think paying 70 points for a unit like that to do that probably isn't worth it, in my opinion. I think you need to use it the way I use it, but of course I wouldn't say that. That's the way I'm using it. But you'll have to let me know in the comments if you're using them differently and how. I mean, I know the enhancement from the Awakened Dynasty is one way of doing it, and like I said, we'll get onto that in a bit. Next question from It's Mr. Zeth. Multi-threat eliminator, is it worth it? Is it worth planning your game around this ability? So this is the ability where if a friendly unit within 3 inches of the Hexmark Destroyer has been targeted at range, then you get to shoot as if it was your shooting phase with your 6 pistols, or 6 attacks with your pistols. You can only obviously target the unit that's targeted the unit within 3, and only if they're eligible. You know, you need to have visibility and be within range, which is 18-inch range for this particular case. Personally, I don't think the ability is all that, not enough to plan my entire list around. If a unit is within 18 inches, which is the pistol's range, then there is a high chance that they're actually within 12. And if they're within 12, then it completely breaks your line up, and they're probably targeting the Hexmark rather than the unit that you're stood next to, like whether it's a Doomsday Ark or a Canoptic Doomstalker or whatever. So therefore they would just target the Hexmark himself. Now, also, these pistols are not that effective against quite a lot of units. I mean, monsters and vehicles, it won't even make a dent. Intercessors, you'll kill a model, okay, that's nice. It's not your turn, it's just a nice bonus, I suppose. Terminators, you'll remove a single wound. It's not doing a lot with 1 damage. Now, this ability does actually work on himself because he is a friendly within 3 inches of himself. So it will work. So if he does get shot at and he does survive, he will get to shoot back, which is kind of cool. He'll have to, of course, manage to survive though, which is not that easy because what is he? He's only toughness 5 with 5 wounds and a 3+ armor save. There's no invulnerable save. They've got an itchy nose. There's no invulnerable save whatsoever. So if he's getting targeted within 12 inches, he's probably gone. But no, to answer the question, I wouldn't plan my list around this particular ability. It's just a nice bonus to have, especially alongside the next question, which is when to use the free Overwatch. Now, he's got an ability, Inescapable Death, where you can basically use an Overwatch stratagem for free, even if you've already used it that phase. And you do it on a 2+, not a 6+, which is cool. Now, I want to start this question off by saying this is very easy to mess up. And there's a few ways to mess this stratagem up, or this ability up, rather. First one is, I've actually seen players do this. So players use the ability, they go, you know what, I'm going to fire Overwatch, and it's free, bang, 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 do the shots, and then later on in the phase they say, well, I've got some Immortals and I want to fire Overwatch. I'm allowed to use it because I've only used it once, and the Hexmark allows you to use it again. Incorrect. You can't do that because in the actual ability is if you've already used it this phase. So you can do it in reverse. You can start with the Immortals, spend a command point, and then go to the Hexmark Destroyer. Then do it for free. That way is allowed. But there's also something else to know here, which is you have to do this all in the same phase. Now, I know Fire Overwatch is you can only use it once per turn, and at a glance you'll think, well, this ability you can just use another Overwatch, one in the movement phase, one in the charge phase. It doesn't work like that either. You've got to use this ability in the same phase that you've already used the Fire Overwatch stratagem. So if you fight with some Immortals in your opponent's movement phase and you want to use this ability, you need to do it now in that phase. You can't wait till the charge phase. It won't be free. In fact, you can't even use it, so you can't do it at all. So it has to be done in the same phase. It's not the same turn. So the question is when? When do you use it? First of all, you need to work out if you have any plans to fire Overwatch with any other unit you've got within your list or on the battlefield. And you need to sort of pre-plan, because maybe you want to do it in the movement phase, maybe you want to do it in your opponent's charge phase. You need to pre-plan this. Work it out. Are you going to be using one command point to do Overwatch? Then once you've decided that, you either do it or you don't. You then go to the Hexmark Destroyer. And this one is free regardless. At this point it's free because you've done it in the correct order. Make sure it's the correct phase, obviously. You're going to be hitting on 2s. It's completely free. And you need to be doing this every turn, if you're able to, of course. You need to be within, well, Fire Overwatch is within 24, but the pistols are only 18 in range. Because you need to spend a CP to do it, it's easy to forget that it's virtually a part of his data card. You've got to use it as if it's your shooting phase. You've got to use it, got to remember to use it. So many times I forget to use the free Overwatch. One thing to point out, though, is if you're doing an action such as recover assets or sabotage, they end of your opponent's next turn. So you can technically use the Fire Overwatch ability, stratagem, or the multi-threat eliminator ability, even if you've already started these actions, because the restriction for firing or charging only actually happens in your turn, which is a bit of a weird situation. So you can be doing recover assets and still be doing Overwatch and stuff like that. Bit odd. Maybe there's somewhere in the rules commentary that I've missed that restricts you from doing that, but as far as I can see, I think you can. Next question is, what's the best enhancement options for a Hexmark Destroyer? Now for me, in my opinion, there's just 2. I know there's, how many have we got? 5 times 4, we've got 20 options in the Codex until a new detachment comes out, maybe during the Christmas time. But at the moment, out of 20 of them, I only see 2 that are worth it. The first one is very worth it. The Phasal Subjugator Aura enhancement, which is 35 points in the Awakened Dynasty. All units within 6 inches that are not character units get a +1 to the hit roll. So we've recently done the Seraptic Heavy Construct video. Perfect unit to be using alongside a Hexmark because they're going to get a +1 hitting on 2s. That's deadly. That's really deadly. Canoptic Doomstalkers that hit on 4s. I mean, to be honest, you're probably playing the Canoptic Core if you're doing that. You've got your Doomsday Arcs. If you do move them, yes, you lose Dev Wounds, but then at least you're going to still be hitting on a 2+. I mean, another one, it could be like a Monolith or a Tesseract Bolt. Units that can't be led can still gain the buff from the Awakened Dynasty. So that's the first one, in my opinion, in terms of enhancements. And the other one is from the Hypercrypt Legion, Dimensional Overseer, 25 points, and you basically get to add an additional unit within the hyperphasing rules. So you normally have 3 at 2k. You can hyperphase 4 units if you've got this enhancement on. It doesn't actually need to be on the Hexmark, but you may as well, because he's going to be popping in and out and probably using it the most. So that's the only 2 enhancements I can really see. You're not going to bother with stealth. You're not going to put a Veil of Darkness on him and things like that. So I think that's sort of it. Canoptic Core, you can't use any. He's not a Cryptek. The Obeisance Phalanx, he's not an Overlord. The Annihilation Legion, he is a Destroy Cult unit, but they're all related to being in a fight, and that's not really his game. Do we have any Codex alternatives in the Codex, obviously? Now, the obvious ones are the Death Marks at 65 points, which is a little bit cheaper, 5 points, and we did it was in a Death Marks video, we sort of did a little bit of compare and contrast the 2 units, and the Hex Marks are just better. But some people like the snipers and the precision. They of course got their built-in deep strike. They're a scoring option there. They can shoot, and they can shoot out of phase as well with their own unique ability. I'd also argue the Tomb Blades are another alternative here. They can shoot. Now they can't deep strike, but they're pretty rapid. If you can move 12 inches and then you advance with your Tesla, that's another d6 with your advance roll, and then after firing the Tesla weapons you get to move another 6 inches. You've got a potential of 24 inches of movement there. Potential. That could get you into places where some units can't actually deep strike because of the 9-inch restriction, or even the 3-inch restriction with Cosmic Precision. So they can get into little places unnoticed, or even if they're screened off, they can get in. Now the only problem with that is if you're wanting to use them as an action monkey, well you can't, because they've advanced and they've shot. So they're only actually moving 12 inches without doing those 2 things that restrict you from doing the action. So that's the one drawback with Tomb Blades. I don't tend to use Tomb Blades that much now because of those restrictions, but I do see the reason why some people do take them. Now, what scoring can a Hexmark Destroyer actually do? And I've got this list out, and I'm going to say quite a lot of the secondaries can be done. Containment behind enemy lines, engage all fronts, area denial, establish locus, which is the action, cleanse the action. Sabotage and recover assets are both very good for a Hexmark because they end at the end of your opponent's next turn. So they need to survive. Lone Op helps massively there. And of course the primaries. Don't forget your primaries. I mean, how many games have I won where I've gone second and I've hyperphased them off in my opponent's turn 5 and brought them back in my turn 5? Don't forget, if you go second and it's turn 5, you score at the end of the turn, not at the start of your turn. So it doesn't matter if they're off the board. You hyperphase everything in. 3 units if you can, maybe 4 with the enhancement. And you can literally flood the objectives, which is actually quite good for one of them secret missions as well. Getting all the objectives late game. So yeah, that's the kind of scoring that the Hexmark can do. And like I said, it's won me so many games with those secondaries, whether it's fixed, whether it's tactical, and the primaries late game as well. Is the Hexmark Destroyer the best unit in the Codex? This one I had to throw in there. Yes, 1000% yes. In my opinion, just my opinion of course. Lone Op is amazing, we don't have much of it. Luminazaris is the only other one, and it's not even a natural Lone Op, he gets it within 3 inches of another unit. You've got the fact that he's got Deep Strike, so Deep Strike and Lone Op is even more amazing. You've got potentially hyperphasing with Lone Op and Deep Strike, which is triple amazing. And then you've got Cosmic Precision with hyperphasing with Deep Strike and Lone Op, which is just super duper ultra OP in my opinion. It's really good. Then add the fact that he's got the 6 attacks with the pistols and the 2 unique abilities that fire out phase. Incredible. All for 70 points. 70 points. He should be 100. Yeah. He's cheap and he's good. Check out the latest Necron videos here on Planet 40k and remember to subscribe on your exits.